Thank you very much. Taking flight, I went back and forth between the Toronto and Vancouver shows, so my first thought with all the chairs was make sure your chairs are in the upright position and your tray tables are stowed before we get into this. This is very cool. This is very exciting. I am honored to be a tiny part of this very cool Canadian technology launch and bring to market. And as you'll see, we're going to go through this whole thing about this boat. Have you guys seen it out there? Has anyone not seen it? All right, that'd be an interesting introduction here. Then you can go see it. If you haven't, take the time, ask these guys. They've got their whole team there. So any follow-up questions that we can't get to here, go to the booth and pepper them with questions. So let's start with an introduction here. This guy decided that this was possible, and we'll get into how, why, and his background. But this is Mike Peasgood. So thank you very much for joining us. Waterloo-based company.
Thanks so much for the introduction. And yeah, so we are a Waterloo-based company. We are a marine tech company. This reaches almost over there with long arms. Yeah, a really deep tech engineering core from our team in Waterloo, addressing some of the really tough challenges in the marine industry. And we'll dig into a little bit more of our background and why we've got a little bit of unique talent that is solving some of the most interesting problems there.
Yeah, and you know, the foils are the first thing that jump out when you see these images. And I was, you know, our company, NorthWake Media, was the ones that were asked to get these, and so I got to see this thing fly repeatedly in Toronto Harbor and around the islands, and it doesn't get old. I mean, I took these pictures, our crew took these pictures. I was on the boat, and I keep double taking at them. The hydrofoil is one part of it. We'll get to that, but also very key to include here, this is all electric, because hydrofoil does not mean necessarily electric, and we'll get into all the what's and the whys. But let's start with the electric aspects. Why bother with doing this? You know, those Teslas and those fellas have been messing around in cars. I haven't really seen that much of it. We're starting to see a little bit, but there's not as much in boats. So why are you bothering with this?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of what got me into this. Was I'm loving the electric car experience. I go to a new car auto show, and like most of the floor is filled with electric cars, and they're incredibly high performance. They're super easy to maintain. I've got 2 electric cars now. I haven't seen my mechanic for 5 years. He kind of misses me, but the hardly any maintenance is amazing, and I never go to a gas station. And the performance is spectacular. And I keep coming to the boat show saying, okay, now I want that on the water. I want that level of performance and really low maintenance and torque and pickup is amazing. But I haven't seen anything out here that's got that kind of performance. And I've been really kind of digging into why not. I keep coming back. And it was discovered that there's only 2% of new boats made today are electric, compared to about 40% of new cars. Like, well, that's weird. There's something missing here. There's got to be a gap in the market, and I want one. I'm sure there's other people that want one. What's the real problem? And as I started digging into it, it's really comes down to physics. The challenge with boats, as you know, it takes a lot of gas. For anybody that's driven power boats a lot, and you can go through a tank of gas and $300 later, you say, wow, how did that happen? Because it takes about 10 times as much power to push a boat through the water as it does to push a car down the road.
I've got the solution. 10 times more batteries. Done.
Easy peasy. So yeah, and we see people doing that. There's some high performance boats out there, and you'll see some electric wake boats, for example, and they've got about 3 times as much battery as a regular Tesla. It's a massive amount of battery. So that gets super heavy really fast. It gets really expensive really fast. And you still only get a fraction of the range that you'd want. So you can burn through all those batteries in half an hour, 45 minutes. You got 25 kilometers and then you're done for the day. So I'm like, that's not performance to me. That's not gonna engage with the rest of the community out there to really scale electric in the market. And so we thought about a different way of doing it instead of putting 10 times as much batteries. And it really comes back to physics. Let's reduce the drag. Let's get more efficiency on the water, and we decided to dig into hydrofoils. I've got an e-foil board. I've done some wing foiling. It's a ton of fun. It's incredibly efficient, and it's actually a little bit challenging though. So hydrofoils have been around a long time. Alexander Graham Bell was out flying across Brador. We got an amazing Canadian tech background in hydrofoils themselves. but they haven't really caught on. I started kind of digging into why not. We get the efficiency that we need, about 4 times the efficiency of a regular hull. And so now we can get speed of a fast boat. We can get the range, about 4 times the range of a conventional hull. But there's still something missing. Why isn't everybody building these? If Graham Bell invented them like 50 years ago, where's the foils? But for anybody that's tried to ride an e-foil board, it's kind of like standing on the top of a pencil. And it's really wiggly up there. So it turns out the challenge is really that it's a flight control problem. The foil lifts the hull out of the water, so the foil stays underneath water, but it's also unstable because you're kind of standing on top of this strut. So
Yeah, and with a
that's kind of
board,
hard.
you can move around and it's smaller and you can manipulate it. But with a boat, and you're going to have multiple people, and there's going to be maybe just the driver on one side. Maybe you have even spacing. Maybe you have, you know, the more husky of your friends visiting. And we're not going to body shame here, Jeff. We're just we're working on everything up on the host side here, eating healthier. But you're going to need that boat to be able to go in that straight line no matter what. You're not going to have people shimmying around. So, you know, you can't just tape that onto that.
Exactly. The duct tape solution just didn't quite cut it.
No. So is this why hydrofoils have been around? He's right. They go way back. The technology's there. It's proven. Has it just been too hard, or are all these other manufacturers just too lazy to just put it on?
Mostly lazy. No. So no, it actually is. It's interesting. If you look at, there are some hydrofoil boats that have been around a long time. I was on the hydrofoil between Macau and Hong Kong, and so they've been in that space. But those boats were built by Boeing. They weren't built by a boat company. They were built by an airplane company. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, and explain that you know, I did physics up to OAC, which no longer exists, but
dating ourselves
yeah,
here.
it's, you know, that it's water is a liquid. I remember the teacher saying air is a liquid, and it just made no sense to me. But how everything behaves is just water acts like thicker air. Is that right? That's why the aeronautical side of things applies?
Yeah, and it really is. It's just all the math is the same, except there's a difference of density of a difference of about 1,000. So when you see on an airplane, you've got the wings and the propellers are really the same physics as a hydrofoiling boat with a wing underneath, but the wing can be much smaller because the water is so much denser. And that's really one of the big differences. A couple other details around the difference between water and air. But yeah, they're basically the same math behind all of it.
And we're gonna get into that math and the tech, but there's a fun aspect to this as well, that it's a very different experience flying over the water than carving through it, or even you know, jumping on a wave runner. You might think, oh, I know what that's kind of like. This doesn't feel like a regular boat in a good way though, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we once we started digging into this and we built one, we're a bunch of engineers, we're really focused around the performance and the efficiency numbers, but then you get behind the wheel of a hydrofoiling boat, and if you've ever driven or ridden on an e-foil board, you get that experience of flying over the water, and it's addictive. It is an entirely different feeling because of that aeronautics connection again. It feels like flying a plane rather than riding a conventional boat, because you don't feel the waves. You're not crashing. You can be in like really choppy water. You've got the other wake boats going by, creating a huge wake that's coming at you. So a couple of years before I got into this, I was out on a Donzi, and it's like, oh, let's just give it. And awesome experience until we hit a wake boat wave. And then, and I was airborne for a little while. I was like, whoa. High performance is one thing, but safety and stability and that smooth flight is a whole different experience. And it gets super quiet, super smooth, and it really has to be experienced to tell what the difference is.
Yeah, definitely. The video next?
Oh, we could.
Oh no, okay, this is the cool part. I like this because I could even figure this one out.
Want to geek out a little bit?
Yeah, so if anyone wants after this and you have a whiteboard, Mike has a PhD and will happily geek out with you and go into formulas and details and into this. But give us the sort of high level. This is the brains of the ENVGO. We've cut the image in the middle. So walk us through what we're looking at here.
Yeah. So what's going on here is a lot like what you've got in an airplane or a drone that's flying around in the sky, combined with all the magic that you need from the electric car industry to make electric propulsion really easy. And then a little bit of integration for the nautical marine side of things. So you'll see in the middle of this, we've got all the flight control magic. So there's a real-time flight controller, which is doing all the balancing and control and stabilization, keeping the height above the water really precision controlled, and dealing with all the waves. As it's hitting waves, it's compensating for those. As the wind is pushing it over, it's compensating for those. As people are walking around on the boat, regardless of how many Krispy Kremes they ate that morning, it's compensating for all of that without any need for the pilot to have any control experience. So all of that is baked into that control system in the middle. And then we start adding on to that the electric part. So all at the back of the boat, we've got an electric drivetrain, which is driven by electric motors, which are very similar to your EV, an EV style battery, which charges exactly the same as the automotive world is, and then a charging system, which you plug in a charger on the side of your dock or in your boathouse, and it charges just like an electric car. So it's been amazing being able to just leverage everything that's happened in the automotive space for that electric part. And the real key here is because of that flight control system in the middle and the foils, we can use those electric car batteries because we're not pulling very much power. If you don't have those foils, again, you need that huge amount of power. So the boats which are just doing a pure electric drivetrain in a regular boat need different batteries because they got to have so much power. We can use what's already been built in the automotive space.
Right, and the foils, and you see the demo out there, they've got they look just like an airplane wing, like the aileron type things moving. How many calculations does this thing have to do to keep that going smoothly and adjust? Because it's also worth noting, this takes care of everything. The question I've even heard people say is, I've got enough going on, you're driving a boat, I gotta worry about that stand-up paddleboard, I gotta worry about that wake surfboard that's coming over here, I'm looking out for swimmers and rocks and things like that. Now you're gonna have me adjusting these foils, like do I deploy them, do I have to do anything? And if not, how much witchcraft you got going on here?
So it is all about the witchcraft. It's there's a lot of magic going on there. From that sensor suite is a set of accelerometers and gyros, which are all digital and micro components that are integrated into what's called an IMU, an inertial measurement unit. So that's updating its estimated state of the boat and roll and pitch thousands of times a second. And then it's controlling the position of the ailerons and the elevators 250 times a second. So that's the kind of thing that you just can't ask somebody to do with some sticks. I got a little picture later on and you'll see somebody trying to do it and it doesn't go well.
Excellent. And sorry, I cut you off. Where are we now? The orange, these little camera
let's look at the
images?
orange pieces. So the other pieces that we're bringing from everything in the automotive space is all the safety and the ease of use that the digital tech is bringing us. So I buy a car today and I kind of expect it to have backup cameras and maybe cameras around the outside so I can park really easily and see everything around me. It's got warning systems of if I'm going to hit the car in front of me, it'll pop up a little warning, it might automatically brake. All of that tech is just missing in the boating world, because I get on my boat and I was like, I don't have any of that. I don't really expect it right now, but I think people are going to come to expect it more and more as we just expect this out of our cars. So that's an array of cameras around the boat. It can see everything around it. The first thing it does is takes all of that imagery, stitches it together into a view so you can see a bird's eye view of everything around the boat. So why do you care about that? Well, the next layer on, you'll see there's a GPU and vision processing piece going on in there, which can figure out what's in that image. So if there's a swimmer behind you, it can detect that there's a swimmer behind you, give you a little warning and say, don't back up, right? You can actually then just prevent the person from backing up and give you a warning and take control of the boat so you can save a lot of accidents that way. So that camera system is also looking forward, it's looking to the side. It can give you advanced warning if there's a boat that you haven't seen in front of you because you're out there in the middle of the night. We can build thermal cameras, we can build low light sensors that can really save a lot of accidents that are going on. Won't call out anybody in particular, but accidents happen at night, and we can save a lot of that tragedy on the water. So all of that to say, there's a whole lot of brains on the inside of this boat. It's smarter than I am.
Yeah, and I think that I found that really neat learning more about the company and the boat, that things like the camera system, that is not required for the foiling. This is just one of the tech systems. And we'll get more into that later, that probably, well, look at you all look very successful and attractive and wealthy, so you're all gonna buy one. But out there, the regular people is probably like one that's walking around, and they know this. But this is a showcase of all kinds of tech that some of it we'll see coming out later, that we could have these sensor upgrades that you've been working on for this, that we could get on, my Sea Ray in the future. Is that right?
Exactly, and that's I think the real piece of this is the NV1 is a showcase for a whole lot of technology, and we're using that really to demonstrate to the market and the industry we can help solve a whole lot of problems. And ENVGO doesn't have to build a lot of boats. What we do want to help is the rest of the industry build a whole lot more safe boats, efficient boats, electric, hydrofoiling, hit all those different applications, and really be an enabler for the industry with some of the tech that we're building here.
Excellent. So let's have a look. We'll give you a look at what it looks like on board and chasing it around of the flight. So you can see how small the wake is. This is in Lake Ontario, that is Toronto Island to the left of your screen. This is up in Muskoka. It is a tiny little wake. You're not gonna have zero wake because we're going, what speed are we going here?
This is doing about 20 knots.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But you just got those 3 little pegs basically in there. So a question that people will have, because this is different, is, what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if I hit a rock and I shear off that front foil? Am I just gonna plunge down into the depths and sink?
So not at all. The foils are designed really with safety as our first priority. Safety of our employees as they're out testing. I'm out flying that thing, so I care about how reliable and safe it is. And so that front foil, for example, is designed with a shear pin. So if you do hit something with that front foil, the foil just collapses. And really the rest of that hull is designed to the specs of a regular boat. And when it comes down, we've tested all the worst case conditions of trying to fly out of the water. When it comes down, it's like coming off a regular wave with a regular boat. You're not that far off the water, really.
That's true. We keep saying flight and we're referring to it, but you can see it's just a couple feet. And this is a cool shot, cutting through the wave. You can see no movement. So you're falling that far. And yes, it is just like a regular boat when you're putting into your dock.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not exactly like a regular boat entirely. It's actually a little bit better. So what you do see when you're pulling into the dock is, because of all that sensor capability that we've built in there, and the control system that we have, the electric drivetrain actually makes it really easy to do a lot of really smart things. So the electric drivetrain can spin the motors really precisely forward, backward. So the low speed control is really amazing. We tie that in with a, let's jump back there again.
It's a good thing you're tall and you have the reach to get close to the
I feel like
control.
it's all the water skiing that I do.
I feel like ENVGO has a new tech challenge right now.
Exactly. So yeah, that low speed control is all driven by joystick control. So when you're coming into a harbor and you're navigating around a lot of other boats and you're pulling up to the dock and it's really windy and the wind is blowing you off the dock, there's a joystick control that you can just nudge the boat to the left, you can nudge it to the right, forward, backward, rotate in place, and when you let go of the stick, it just holds position. Because everything is already GPS controlled. It has to be a smart boat to be able to do that. So building on that platform of all that intelligence and inherent GPS controlled design, and the ease of controlling those propellers, because it's not going through a big gear change on a gas engine, it's super controllable. And then this layer we'll talk about a little bit more around what are the other autonomy capabilities that makes it super easy to almost self-park your car these days. We're bringing that in so you can basically self-park your boat. It can see everything around you. It knows where the dock is. So now when you're pushing on that joystick, and maybe you push it in the wrong way, or your kid's out there and he's just learning to drive the boat, and he's pushing it around the wrong way, it knows where the dock is. It just won't let you drive into it.
So we're kind of showing it here, getting ahead of a question that everyone has about anything electric is range. How far could this go with the tech you got right now?
Yeah, so what we've built with NV1, we really designed it around the Muskoka Lakes. So I said, I want to be able to get anywhere in Muskoka from a cottage, go see the lake, spend a day on the water, get home again safely, have some buffer in the battery. So 100 kilometers was our target, and we really, that, like I say, allows us to do a whole day on the water. So that 100 kilometers is about 3 or 4 times what you would get with a high-speed conventional electric boat.
Excellent. We saw, the next slide. So the first thought that comes to mind when I first heard about the tech in the middle, and there's all these calculations, is that drones that 10 years ago weren't a thing, and then they've exploded, and now you can go to Best Buy and you get one for $400, and it'll hover there, and not in a hurricane, but in a slight breeze, it'll hold its position, and it's doing just a ton of calculations. We take that all for granted. So you basically took that kind of concept, put it on here, which leads me to believe that you just poached a whole bunch of drone engineers.
So I actually got into the drone industry about 20 years ago, and that was a lot of my research at University of Waterloo. Was getting into mobile robotics and control systems, and building those flight control systems so that we could fly not just in the light breeze, but we were flying drones in some of the toughest conditions. So we were serving those for public safety, so the OPP would get out there and they'd have an accident on the 401 and they needed to clear that as quickly as they could. So we'd give them a drone with a camera on the top, they could map the whole area, and it just had to work. Like, it was a day like today, and it just has to work. It wasn't going out on sunny days. And then we were delivering those to 40 different countries around the world into military zones where they just had to work because people were getting shot at, and it had to be super easy and super reliable. So that was my background from Arion Labs, and I wouldn't say poached, they came of their own volition. We sold that company in 2019, and that was a good success story for Canada and for the industry. But a few of those folks were maybe looking for something new and interesting to do, and I said, how about we take all of that tech and experience that we've had making stuff fly, and let's apply that to Boeing world and make some boats fly.
So let's talk about that process of how you made the boats fly, because it's not as simple as, take the motors out of the drone, slap it in the boat, plug in a couple wires, like a montage in a movie. How did we get to where we are from here? How do we get from, hey, we built drones, we sold them, to what we're seeing?
I like your montage idea. If you can help me put one of those together, this will be a fun project. Here's a couple of snippets that we'll bake into the montage. So it was really taking that drone experience and then figuring out what do we need to adapt that to marine. And there's a few things that are different that make it really challenging, and that's where you need some of the experience from the marine space. So one of those exceptional individuals is Steve Killing. Some of you may have come across Steve. He still is an amazing naval architect up in Midland, and he was involved with the America's Cup designs in New Zealand when they first built a hydrofoiling America's Cup, and they kind of shook up that whole world of sailing into the foiling future. So he was amazing to work with, and then J. David Weiss was another super creative yacht designer that we connected with down in North Carolina, and he helped us with this concept design.
I know that name. I've seen his stuff. Follow him. He designs super yachts, and so if you ever follow him, it's beautiful. And I will jump in and say that I love that you had the design from day one, because so often historically, when there was anything new, and remember the Honda Insight, that electric car from back in the day? just the ugliest thing you ever saw. And they're like, why are people buying electric cars? I'm like, I've got an idea, because I'll burn the gas in the Mustang because I like the look of that, and I'm not going to drive that melted jelly bean. So I like that you got there, but you didn't waste your time in the early days. Though that one with the green stripe does look like a hoot and a half.
Yeah, it was pretty compelling design, I thought. So as a bunch of engineers, we put our best design talents to use, and we got some pieces of plywood, and we built that. We called that pickerel. So the main goal there was really to prove out what are the interesting things that makes hydrofoiling a bit of a different challenge than flying. So we took our flight controller and we put it in there. Learned some really interesting things on the engineering side. When you look at NV1, one of the questions that we get a lot is, why are your propellers pointing forwards instead of backwards? Like any regular boat, you put the propellers on the back. So that kind of learning came out of doing some experiments on things like pickerel, where we could just put one person inside it, do that testing, and discover there's problems that you run into in the water that you don't have in the air, like cavitation. Air doesn't cavitate, but water does. So if you've got a low pressure zone that gets really low pressure because you've got so much, say, either pull from the prop or lift from the foil, once the pressure drops below the boiling point, the water effectively boils. And all of a sudden you've got air pockets and you lose all your efficiency, and all of a sudden things stop working. So that kind of behavior is what we learned on here, and it becomes really important to have that experience so that you know, oh yeah, putting the propellers on the front, make sure that they're getting clean flow of water in and it's not getting disturbed by the hydrofoil. So a lot of the design elements on the engineering side that ended up in NV1, we proved all that out in that small boat. And the other really key piece there, you'll see that's Sam, our test pilot. He was foolish enough to join us as a co-op student, and he's become one of our best engineers now, and also our test pilot. And the experience that you can see he's having there is really unique. And that's where we really clicked into, you know what, we need to build a high performance one of these. It's not good enough to just kind of go straight and go back and forth. We saw other hydrofoiling boats out there, and a lot of the demos, they were kind of getting into the ferry market, and they said, we'll bring this to North America and sell it to the recreational market. And it's like, no, it's gotta be a lot of fun. And that little pickerel boat was a lot of fun because you go carving around corners. It feels more like a fighter jet, which is kind of why we designed the steering wheel to be kind of like a fighter jet or a race car. It was just an awesome sport experience. So all of that learning led into those design elements that went into the NV1 that, as I say, David Weiss was amazing in bringing the aesthetic of, we're gonna build something which actually conveys that element of flight, something that would be beautiful, that you want to have in front of your cottage, and really kind of stands out as it's not just a boat with some stilts put on the bottom with some wings.
How long did it take you to get from your first actual prototype in the water to where we are today?
We started the company in the middle of the pandemic in 2020. A disaster time is a really good time to start a company because you're not trying to sell anything, so didn't disrupt us at all. And then we started the design of the NV1 with David in 2023. We got our first prototype built, and this was doing our first test flights with it at the bottom in 2024. And then we spent 2025 getting it out on the water for real, doing demos all over Lake Ontario and up in Muskoka. And now we are out there with the real prototype on the water and in the show today. And we're starting up production this coming summer for deliveries next year.
Exactly, and this is what the Founders Edition looks like. If you want one, because this crowd, of course, successful and beautiful, they'll all get one.
Of course, yeah. I've probably got a special discount coupon if you talk to Marie on your way out the door. Exactly. As a thanks for coming out today.
Yeah, what's the here? Advanced field package, or you're gonna need rotator cuff surgery after this. Yeah, I was gonna say this is great because this is one that I think will be very interesting to a lot of boaters. And you touched on it earlier. Why has something like this been so slow to come to the marine space? Now, I've been in the marine world for a little while. 2014 is when I started with Powerboat TV, and I've seen there's the follow sort of automotives doing this, keyless fobs. that starts coming in, there's a whole bunch of reasons for the things, but why is it this one? Is it that just the water is just too unpredictable for the systems that they have, that, you know, we can sense where things are, but in a car you can stop it and you have control of it, unless it's maybe like a day like today? Or like, why is this taking so long?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of reasons. One is around just the size and scale of the industry, right? We don't sell as many boats as we do cars in this world. So to make the investment that it takes into the technology is a little bit of a challenge in the boating world. So, and I think that's why we see all that tech kind of shows up about 10 years later. And now is the time when it's about 10 years after this all showed up in the automotive world, where it actually the costs start coming down enough that it makes sense to build at the scale where we're building boats in the, say, hundreds of thousands instead of millions. So that's one element that's key. And then the other is around it's a different environment. So there's a lot of adaptation that we need to do to the tech that's happened in automotive as we bring it into the water. If you want to get all geeky about it, cars are a kinematics control problem because they move exactly where the wheels drive them. Boats are a dynamics problem because they just push around and they don't stay still. So it's a more sophisticated, challenging control problem for the engineers in the crowd, and that's where a lot of so are airplanes, right? So that's where we need to bring in that aerospace tech, and the aerospace tech didn't really make sense and mature until it happened in the drone industry. It was really those drones over the last 20 years that brought that technology from being a $100,000 system that we sold back in 2007, 2008 with those really high performance drones to what you can buy for $400 at Best Buy. So all of that, bringing that technology to the market at scale is what's happening now. And with the advancements in AI, that is the other layer that's really now providing a lot more investment into the space, because everybody's excited about what can we do with AI that we couldn't do before. And investors are excited about the opportunities to bring that AI capability for safety and performance and ease of use. So that's where we're bringing a ton of experience there from the drone industry as well. What can we do with vision cameras that we couldn't do before? It's alignment of all of those kind of waves of technology and advancement happening at the right time in the right place to make that possible.
All right, so now I'm gonna have you be Nostradamus. So you saw what happened with drones. You were there at the beginning, and then just touched on it. Where do we go from here? How long until this goes from tech that's featured on the highest tech Canadian innovation with a unique boat to something that's affordable for, you know, the average bear that I'll have on my Princecraft?
Yeah, I think it's going to happen a lot faster than we expect. The other trend that's been happening across all of the tech industries is there's an acceleration in development. That the AI capabilities have really accelerated. It's interesting if you look at the new features that are coming out on AI platforms, just in computing. They're actually holding back the features because people can't learn them fast enough to use them. So the tech is actually advancing faster than we're able to absorb it and integrate it into our lives. So we're not going to be held back by the technology. It's going to start showing up a lot faster than we expect, and it'll be there for the people who want to adopt it early. So that's our mission, is to really push the limits of that. And again, on the safety, on the ease of use, I think the next couple of years you'll see, the big players and the Yamahas and the Brunswicks of the world are starting to announce right now kind of those auto docking type capabilities, which are already kind of baked into what we're building at ENVGO. And I think it really is the market pull and the adoption that we need to see from the consumer saying, do I trust it yet? I think that's actually going to be the piece that controls how fast it comes out. Rather than the technology being ready, it's going to be the consumer saying, am I ready for that? And what we saw in the automotive space, you couldn't just take a self-driving electric car and put it out there. You had to work through all those steps of, I've got cruise control. Do I trust cruise control? Well, it seems to be working okay. Okay, now I've got used to cruise control and I expect it. Now I've got a lane keeping system. Do I trust my lane keeping system? Sometimes it kind of wanders out of the lane. I don't really trust it. And a couple years later, you're like, Oh yeah, most of the time, I can just let go of the wheel some of the time. And now you can go to San Francisco and get an autonomous car and there's no driver and it just takes you where you need to go. So that kind of advancement, I think, is what we're going to see on the marine side as well. So we're going to start with, we can give you an overhead view of everything around you. That becomes helpful. Okay, now do you trust that when it sees the dock, that that's really where the dock is? And you'll get some confidence that, and by next year, it's going to be, well, I like this joystick control. I'm not going to go back to trying to navigate with a throttle and steering wheel around a marina if I don't have to. And then the year after that, you're going to find, oh, I just got a software upgrade from these ENVGO guys, and I wake up today and my boat says, which dock would you like to park at? I'll take you there. So that's the advancement and the progression that we're going to see. And like I say, I think it's going to be, the speed of that is going to get driven by how much demand we get from the consumer and how confident they become in the technology.
Yeah, so you're more of a tech company than a boat company, with all due respect to the NV1.
Well, thank you. We are very proud of it. But no, we acknowledge that we are a tech company. Our mission is to enable the rest of the industry with the technology that can create safer, faster, clean tech solutions, higher efficiency. A lot of the pull that we're seeing is independent of electrification. If we can save 75% of the cost of your petrol and your gas or diesel for commuter boats, there's a pretty compelling story there. Right, the efficiency that we gain from hydrofoiling applies both to combustion boats and to electric boats. So when people see the NV1, they see all of this packaged together, which is a little bit daunting. It's understandable to try and accept I'm going to get electric and I'm going to deal with hydrofoils and I'm going to control systems, but all of those different elements are what we're offering to the industry to say, if you need efficiency in transportation and you want to make a water taxi for getting back and forth across Lake Ontario, or for getting over to Toronto Island, or Vancouver Island, or maybe around the Maldives, we can build you something which will only use a fraction of the cost of gas and give you a super smooth experience for your passengers. So that's the type of applications that we're exploring. And then they'll gradually become autonomous until you can go to San Francisco and order up an autonomous cab in a boat.
You hop in a boat with no captain, I'll take you to Alcatraz. So I want to open up to a couple questions, but I have one or two first. Electric and boats. Now, I mentioned I did physics in OIC. I shouldn't brag, but I rocked out of there with a 51.
Nice.
So anytime you need someone on your team, my friend, odds are that I'm slightly better than flipping a coin.
I appreciate that you optimize the amount of work that you put into the course and still passed. That's a sign of genius.
Exactly. Right? You heard it here first. A PhD said it. Call my mom. But so question: electricity and water, they're not friends generally. How do you get around all that? And what kind of charging do I need? Do I have to install a Tesla supercharger on my dock and then plug that in, or am I just running an extension cord from the cottage? What are we looking at?
So anything from one end of that spectrum to the other. I can run an extension cord with 120 down to my dock, and I can charge the boat really slowly. More practically, I would install 240 volts and a 30 to 50 amp circuit beside the dock or in my boathouse, and I would charge it up there. And it charges up with exactly the same as an EV car. So it'll charge up in about 8 hours overnight, then you're good to go for the next morning. And you can also DC fast charge it. So we're going to start seeing a build out of those DC fast chargers. There's one out in Kingston already. There's a collection of them around the US. They're a lot more common in Europe. So we're starting to see, we're a little bit laggards on tech adoption in the electric space on this side of the pond, but we're building it out. And that'll charge up in an hour. So you just head out, you can do 100 kilometers out to where you're going to have lunch, charge up over lunchtime, and head home. And on the safety side, it's exactly the same that as I say, the automotive industry's already dealt with. They're taking cars through car washes. They're out there on a snowy, salty day like today. They're just getting beat up in the same kind of conditions that we're dealing with water all over the boats. So everything is IP sealed. It's really proven tech in wrapping up the installation on the wiring, and there's standards that have already been really well established to keep it safe.
You know, now I think about it, when it's a smaller boat, I think, like a lot of people, like, I don't know, electricity, that's no good, but I've got a 380 Sundancer and we take it to some marina, the first thing we do is get an electrical cord out and plug it into the shore power. So having electricity around the water, you know, has to be done right, has to be done safely, but is not as new as this makes it seem. I want some questions. Anyone have any questions for Mike about the NV1 or the tech, or asking in the future? I have some. So we asked about the range, the reliability. Oh, there's a question here, sorry.
Yeah, quick technical question. In the prototype you showed, it had 2 struts at the front and 1 strut at the back, whereas on the NV1 it's the reverse. Can you talk about why you decided to change, or why you set up the architecture the way you did?
Yeah, that's one of the cool questions. Let me just grab that picture again so people can see what we're talking about. Pretty angry about that picture. There we go. Yeah, so the little boat on the left, we did a different configuration on the foils. So there's a couple of trade-offs there, and you'll see both are actually fairly common in the industry. So there's a trade-off of what you're trying to optimize for. In our case, you're doing a balance between the engineering and the performance constraints, and also the constraints of just building a practical boat. So in our case, we want to have the aesthetics of the boat really slick, like we did with the NV1 design, and also so that we could retract all of the foils up into the boat, and they all tuck away so that you can take it on a trailer and you can put it in your boat lift. So that really drove some of where are we going to put just the mechanics for all of that to fit well. And then at the same time, I was really interested in optimizing the maneuverability of the boat. So that drove, I'd really like to have a dual prop system where those 2 electric motors can give us so much maneuverability and control. And it also actually allows us to do something that we couldn't do on the pickerel, was control the steering just with those 2 props. And we don't have to rotate those props at all. They're just fixed in place. So the steering on pickerel was like an outboard engine, and we had to rotate that back and forth, which added a bunch of complexity. The NV1 is really, really simple because it's just 2 drivetrain shafts down to those fixed propellers. Nothing has to rotate under the water, so that strut and foil system is really, really rigid. And it steers by just changing the speed of those 2 props, and then the ailerons controlling the bank angle. So it flies like an airplane once you're up and flying, and then when you're in the water, you've got amazing control. So all of those elements really kind of tie together. It's a really interesting systems design optimization challenge, looking at all the human factors for making it easy to use. You want to be able to get on and off the boat. How are we going to make sure that you can step onto the back without blocking that off by some big struts which are sticking up out of the, and also making it beautiful. A lot of feedback that we got as we were talking to people was, I see some other competitive products out there, and they're hydrofoiling boats and they're electric, and I just wouldn't have one of those in front of my cottage. Like, it's got these ugly sticks sticking up out of the middle, or it looks like it's on stilts. So making it all beautiful was critical as well. So all of those design trade-offs were really interesting challenge.
Excellent. You would have got hired in 51 because you noted that. That is a good question and good eye. Question here?
Yeah, hi. Very interesting. I'm really enticed by all this. Just any preliminary thoughts as your success grows, and I'm sure this thing will. Solar powering for the batteries. So batteries are the basic charging system, so you get some endless time on the water. So you've got the sun, obviously. You have no trees, or you've got no buildings ahead of you, so you've got the optimum ability to take that science ahead. Have you got some thoughts about that?
Yeah, and I think that is a really interesting space to dig into. Another company that I've been tracking and partnering with a little bit down the road has been building solar boats in Europe that are now traveling all over the world. They're setting distance records with that solar capability. And the value that we can bring there is, again, around the efficiency. So efficiency is just absolutely mission critical to maximize the distance that you can get, because that solar power is so precious. Around North America, I think when we're really focused around the performance piece,
the application of solar becomes installing it on your boathouse or in a shelter over the boat, using that to store up the power in a local battery, which is sitting on your dock, and then you can do a really fast charge. So it can be sitting there all week, just collecting power, and then you can be out in the morning, can burn through as much juice as you want, come back for lunch, and you can do a super fast charge with that solar power that you collected all week with an extra storage battery at the dock.
So not so much Steve's behemoth 38-foot Sea Ray, but on some of the smaller vessels, we all enjoy traditional boats, whereas people get up and move around and things slosh about and all the stability of the vessel. I'm assuming there is a fairly quick response to changes in load and shifts of mass, that the boat stays on line on the horizontal plane as it moves through. Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, exactly. So that's back to that control system updating itself at about 250 times a second, which is a whole lot faster than I can move around. And no, you can run back and forth from one end of the boat to the other, and it's just constantly updating its position and staying perfectly flat through the whole piece. So it's dealing with both people running around on the boat, and also those dynamic changes from the waves, from the wind changing. And a lot of that, again, was coming out of that experience with building a drone system, which would be up there in 50, 60 kilometer winds, and it's just constantly changing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, if you've ever wondered what it feels like to be a duck or a goose coming into land on water, that's kind of what it's like when they retract the foils. And I was on a test ride in the harbor, and I asked, like, what does this feel like? And they're like, well, like this. And it's it's not a jarring stop. It's that sort of gentle land, but you can definitely feel when you hit the water. It's there's a notable difference of that drag that you're talking about, but nothing that throws you forward. It's very neat. I think there's a question at the back.
So my son and his two brothers, they love to fight, and you're saying the fact that as one of them throws together from the back goes in front of the boat, that's not going to impact the boat at all.
Yeah, we highly recommend throwing off the back rather than the front. It's much safer.
Yep.
So my real question is, how long is it, like what distance is required to get from on the water to flight?
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about how fast it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The interviewer here just.
A little bit of an oversight on my part. I mean, I should have mentioned that.
Yeah. No, that's blame you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good.
Wait, hang on a second. Mike.
Yeah.
How fast does it go?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad
Thank
you
you.
brought that up early because I know people will be interested. So the boat flies up to 80 kilometers an hour of a top speed. Getting up to foiling starts at about 35 kilometers an hour. So that's kind of our flying speed, between about 35 to 80. And it takes 7 seconds from a standstill to push the throttle all the way down, and you're up and flying in about 7 seconds at 35 kilometers an hour.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned AI as part of what you're using with the self-docking and some of those things, the control and the safety.
Yeah.
What aspects of AI have you applied to the technology?
So there's really say about 2 or 3 core capabilities that come out of the image processing from those 6 cameras. The first one is called image segmentation. So you've got this picture of everything that's around you, and you need to figure out what part of that is water, what part of that is a dock, what part of that is a boat, and that basically lets you know where's the safe space around you that you can move into, where should you not. So that's the first level of AI, and it's just smart enough to tell those apart. The next part is identification. So you're finding other things that are in that view of the camera. Which ones of those are boats? What kind of boats are they? And how far away is it? And based on all of the training from having video of thousands and thousands of other boats in different scenarios, we can quickly identify where is that boat and what should the response be. Do I need to go to the left? Do I need to go to the right? How fast is that boat moving in those other directions? So that's the next layer on top of that, and then the next layer becomes that planning and what should the response be of the boat to a given scenario, and that becomes the next advanced layer on top of that. And again, that kind of goes along with those updates, which will come automatically over the air updates, and you wake up one morning and okay, now my boat can tell me where I should go, and it starts driving itself. So, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, we need to wrap up here, but I will say Mike and the team are at the booth. So if you have any further questions, feel free to come take a look at it. That is a actual prototype that goes in the water that you're looking at. That's there. You can see everything. And I would also like to point out that this is designed, built in Waterloo, Ontario, funded by Canadians. This is as someone that gets to see the marine industry and go to these shows all over the place. I know that you've been invited to China, ran into you guys at IBEX, which is a big tech boat conference in Florida. You've been in Europe, and so thank you for keeping this in Canada and keeping the Brain Trust rocking in Waterloo. And we're, on behalf of boaters, we're excited to see where this goes and what you do next.
Thanks so much for co-hosting, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'd love to talk to anybody who's got any additional questions, and Maria would ask you to sign up if you want to track what we're doing and where we're going to be out on the water over the course of the summer doing demos. Just sign up for the newsletter, or feel free to just get in touch with me on LinkedIn or an email to Mike at ENVGO. So thanks very much for your time.
Thanks very much.